Une fleur dans le cœur, elle parcourt des nuages, tandis l'océan, il se veut je flash. Dans leurs encres de cristal, ce n'est même plus le monde. Dans leurs encres de cristal, les poupées diront genre, t'as fait de temps.
welcome to Villa Adelruna. We're gonna have a little talk and a drink together. There's usually the same type of questions I get when I do interviews with music media, and they all tend to be very focused around strictly the band, the music and so on, and that's of course how it should be. You make an interview as an artist and not as a private person, but this DVD is a little bit different. It's something for the die-hard fans. So I thought I could answer a few questions that are a little bit different. I often get a lot of questions via Facebook. I normally don't use Facebook, but I've used it during the art project. And even though I didn't have the chance to answer more than maybe 10% of all the messages I get, I still tried to answer as much as I could. And well, I've gathered questions that have often been asked by fans, but never by music journalists, so I thought I could answer them now. Also, my girlfriend tends to get a lot of curious questions from people. I kind of thought that nobody would care about our old death metal albums these days, and actually there's very few people who, I mean, if you compare it with our fan base all in all, there are very few people who are interested in our death metal sound. But those people who are interested in it seems to be very into it and very stubborn about asking me questions why we don't play songs from the early records anymore, and if we ever would make a reunion with the first lineup and so on. But I find that very unlikely that we're gonna do it, because I do not really like singing death metal anymore. It's not that easy. It's not just shouting. You need to have a good vocal technique with it, or you're just gonna blast your throat. You need to practice it. You need to rehearse regularly with a band doing it. Otherwise, you will completely blast your throat. So I'm not gonna go for that. It would be fun playing the songs as a guitar player, but if somebody else is going to do the vocals, it wouldn't be the same thing, so then I'd rather pass on it. I think the Les Paul is a better guitar. It sounds better, and it's nicer to play on, but I got an endorsement from Gibson Guitars, and that's such a big moment to me, because Gibson guitars are the best guitars on the planet, in my book. And the fact that they approached me and wanted to give me free guitars was one of the biggest moments in my life, really. So they gave me Flying V guitars, so I'll play them. And they are the coolest looking guitars on the planet, I think. So even if they are a little bit more difficult to play on than a Les Paul, they still look cooler, and I think that's important for stage, actually, that it looks good. I think I stopped practicing guitar 1994. I was still practicing before the Lepaka Cliffoth album that was out in 95. But after that, I just rehearsed with a band and played guitar a little bit before the tours. I guess I realized somehow that I'm not gonna be in the top 1,000 best guitar players, and I really need to have motivation for doing things, and I realized that my biggest talents are writing songs, arranging songs, and have musical visions. And if we're two guitar players in a band and the other guy is really good, so why should I practice? That's kind of how I felt. But it's like bicycling. If you practice and you get to a certain level, you kind of stay at that level. If you get really, really good, then you need to practice a lot to stay at that level. But for regular rock and roll or metal guitar players, it's not really necessary to practice that much. It's really not like the band sitting around the round table with a world map and discussing where to play. The thing is that there's no phone book with all concert promoters on the planet. You have a booking agent who books your concerts, and any promoter can give an offer for us to play anywhere at any time, how they want. And if there's no offer to play, then you don't play there. And if you want to make a tour, then the promoter or the booking agent you work with, he will send out an offer to all the promoters that he's normally working with, and they can give offers, and whoever give an offer that works out at the moment when you need a show, then that's the one who's gonna get it. The bands very, very seldomly have anything to do with where and when you play. So if you would like a band to play in your city, you should go to your local promoter and ask them if they want to make a concert with the bands you like. Right. Now we have a bunch of questions that my girlfriend Mina made for me. And of course I've been cheating. I've been checking these questions first to make sure there's no fishy stuff. But I haven't really thought this over, so let's see. Yeah, here's a question that she's getting often. Do you have a family and children? Well, I'm living with my girlfriend, I already revealed that. I also have a son who's called Ludwig, and he is almost 6 years old. And every second week he's staying with me, and every second week he's staying with his mother, because we're not together anymore. And yeah, it's a big difference between being a family father and a rock star, I'll tell you that, but it's interesting. Vegetarian questions, she seems to get a lot of those. Is it hard being a vegetarian when you are touring and you're away from home? Well, it depends a little bit from country to country. Some countries are easier, some are more difficult. If you play in a country where there's a lot of bands touring, it's usually easier because there seems to be a lot of musicians being vegetarians actually. So promoters that work with a lot of international bands are usually well prepared. It's worse when you're at airports and those things because, yeah, it's a lot of vegetarian pizza, I'll tell you that. And I've eaten a lot of things that I would never ever eat at home on tour because you have to survive. So if you're somewhere and you're really hungry and the only thing they have is boiled potato, what are you gonna do? Eat potato or just rice with some vegetables or whatever. So I've learned to be flexible. So it's sometimes it's tough, but most of the time it's okay. And another vegetarian question. For how long have you been a vegetarian? And what's your reason for being a vegetarian? It's 17 years, I think now. This summer it became 17 years. And the funny thing is that I never planned to be a vegetarian. It was just something that happened. The story was like this. Me and a couple of friends, among those was Thomas Karlsson, the guy who writes the lyrics for Therion. We were going to Gotland every year, and we tend to been partying around quite a lot. We would go there, drink a lot, and eat a lot of crap food, and have a good time. And at some point, we asked ourselves, I think it was Thomas who came up with the idea actually, why are we going to this place, this beautiful, nice place, and just live so unhealthy? We could stay in Stockholm if you just want to drink and eat crap and get drunk. So since we're going to this very nice place, why not this time try to appreciate it a bit more for itself? So we decided to be sober the whole week or I think it was even, we were there 2 weeks actually, we were there for 2 weeks. So we decided no alcohol, only vegetarian food, drink a lot of spring water from the well of the countryside house where we were staying. And we would sit in front of the fireplace and listen to Lord of the Rings made by the Swedish radio theater, and it was remarkably nice. We had such a nice time. It was the nicest time ever. And when we were all going home from Gotland, we, independently from each other, we never spoke about it. We all felt like it would be to shock the body to start eating a lot of junk food and stuff like that after coming back. So I said to myself, let's phase out this healthy stuff into the everyday thing. And I ate meat a few times, and I thought, it's not such a big deal, is it? And I just felt so good during this time I had on Gotland. So I thought, let's prolong this for a while. Let's be a vegetarian for a month. And I was a vegetarian for a month. And then I thought, well, it would be difficult to give up meat, but let's see this as an interesting, healthy period. Let's prolong this to 3 months. So I was a vegetarian for 3 months. And then I kind of came to a tipping point. And I thought, I really feel much better, but I still miss meat. So let's do it like this. I'm gonna stay a vegetarian for 1 year. And then I will take a definitive decision. Either I stay vegetarian or I'll start eating meat again. And after being a vegetarian for 1 year, it was just impossible to imagine eating meat again. And also, there's another aspect. I mean, up till then, it was just the health aspect that I felt much better not eating meat. But once you have become a vegetarian, then it's easier to think about the moral aspects, because if you eat meat and you start having a philosophical inner conversation with yourself, whether it's right or wrong to kill other creatures to eat, you're accusing yourself. It's a self-accusation. Am I a bad person for eating meat? But if you already stopped eating meat, it's much easier, because then you accuse everybody else. It's actually quite a big difference. So I started to become very critical of the meat industry and so on. And I think if you hunt animals and you eat them, then it's a natural thing. If you go out and shoot a deer and you eat it. But the whole meat industry, where everything is becoming industrialized and the animal is becoming a product rather than a being, it's very tasteless, I think. And also the quality of the meat is becoming very bad, so that's also a health aspect in that too. Are you difficult to work with? A lot of members left the band over the years. I get these questions sometimes from music journalists too, but since a lot of people ask about it, I guess I haven't answered it enough times. I don't think I'm difficult to work with, no. The band has been around for 27 years, which is a very long time. And for a start, I think there are very few bands where you have the original lineup after 27 years. And another thing is that the people often, they mix up what it means to be a hired member and to be a permanent member in the band. If you're a hired member, you're never a member of the band. You're a collaborator. You're somebody we work together with, like Mats Levén or Snowy Shaw or other people. We worked with Sarah Jezebel Viva or Martina Hornbacher. There's a lot of people that, made very important contributions to the band, but who were never band members. And it's like if you run a company, you will work together with different other companies. You buy services from other companies. It's a big difference if you have your own employee and fire your own employee, or if you stop using a service from another company. And this is how it is with hired members, that as long as we feel like it's something beneficial and it brings the band forward, we will continue to work together. And if we feel like we did what we wanted, temporary or permanently, then I will work with somebody else. So that's a part of the concept of the band, Therion. It's more like an organism rather than a regular band. And for many years, we actually didn't even have a singer that was a permanent member of the band. I think from 96, well, until I did some vocals, so you could say I was a vocalist, but I just did a small part of vocals on that record. We basically didn't have a singer from 96 until 2009 or something, I think, when Thomas Wikström became a permanent member. I'm getting old, so it's probably me to remember the years. So if it wasn't 2009, somebody have to correct me. But for all these years, we actually didn't have a permanent singer in the band. It was a band without a singer. If you would ask, what's the name of the singer of Iron Maiden? Everybody would know, oh, it's Bruce Dickinson. Who's the singer of Therion? Quiet, because there were no permanent singer in the band. We worked with different people in live situations and different people in the studio. Some of them both live and in the studio. But that was a unique, that was and still is the unique concept of Therion, that while other bands, they can change the guitar sound or things like that, I could completely, drastically change the sound of the band by changing voices. Okay, but then we have people who actually were permanent members. And, well, the thing was like this. In the beginning of the band, you have this original feeling. You have a couple young guys who form a band together. And yeah, it was a really good feeling, a really good vibe. You have your band and you went to school together and all that. And then, by different reasons, the original lineup was falling to pieces. The first drummer, Oscar, he had 2 kids and he planned to have a 3rd kid. So for him, it was out of the question to go on tour. And, well, he needed to support his family, so he couldn't do a lot of shows that wasn't paid. I mean, back then we didn't earn any money at all. I remember the first time we did a 2-week tour. I think it was in Holland and Belgium with a minivan. When we came home, we had like 20 euro per head profit, including everything, selling t-shirts and everything. If you wouldn't have sold t-shirts, we wouldn't even have money to pay the gasoline on the way home. So if you go and work for 2 weeks and you earn 20 euro, it doesn't work if you have a big family to feed. And also, he was never really into death metal. He started to play the drums in the band because we were in the same class in school since 1st grade until the end of school. So he was more because of that reason, and he was the only guy we knew in the suburb where we lived who could play the drums decently. So for him, when things started to become more serious, with record deals and starting to play a lot, he wanted to pull out. And our first bass player, Eric, he was American, and his parents lived in Sweden, but then they wanted to move back to America, and he was too young to stay alone in Sweden, so he simply had to move back with them. And original guitar player, Peter, he had a lot of health issues, and yeah, it was the same thing for him there, like with Oscar about touring. He liked the music and all that, and we were actually very close. But yeah, he just didn't want to do any tours. So as soon as we started to get offered for tours, he wanted to pull out. So there were no bad feelings, but the original lineup just broke up. And once you've broken the magical original lineup, it's difficult to get back the same vibe. So I just managed to get the wrong people for different reasons for a number of years, and I just get fed up with the whole situation in the end. So after Therion, there were actually no band for a few years. It was my solo project. Everybody I performed with live were just hired, and when we recorded the Bobbin album, there was no band at all either. I recorded the drums with a studio drummer from Germany, and the bass player was a jazz bass player who did a lot of studio jobs in Germany as well. And I never even met them before we ended up in the studio, and I just took my guitar and I showed them, this is how you play the song. And they would write down the music on a piece of paper and go into the studio and record it. And yeah, it's a very impersonal way of making a record, but that's how it was. And a friend of mine helped out with a little bit of the guitars, but I recorded 95% of the guitars alone. And then all the singers were hired. But I always wanted to have a real band again. And when we did the Dead Gel album, we actually had a new lineup again with the Niemann brothers and Sami, and that lineup lasted for quite a few years. I think it must have been from it's like, well, Sami left a bit earlier, but the Niemann brothers were playing with me for 9 years or something. So it's not like we changed lineup every year or anything. And when that lineup broke, we just felt we had done everything we could together. The spark was lost. I guess we made too many records and too many tours, and the spark was not there anymore. So it was a common decision that I would continue alone and they would do other things. And yeah, we were also very exhausted at that point, and which is partly my fault, I have to admit. We did a big world tour supporting Gothic Kabbalah, and we ended the tour in USA and Canada, where we did our second tour over there, which was a big failure. I lost tons of cash on the tour, and everybody was really totally worn out. We were so tired after that tour. And then instead of coming home and resting and trying to regain our strength, we were doing the 20-year anniversary tour. We practically went home from the tour and started to learn a new set, and went on tour more or less immediately. We just had time to rehearse a bit and go. And that tour was very, very difficult to do as well. We played almost 3 hours, and the band was already exhausted before the tour. And we had promised fans that they could choose what songs we would play. So there was a vote on the web page before. And we played the songs that the fans had voted for, and in the middle of the tour, a lot of the guys were telling me like, hey, this is too heavy, we can't do this long set. And that would have been very problematic if we would have cut down the set and made it shorter, because we sold the tour on that set list, like, come and see this tour and we'll play these songs. And for me, it's very important that you keep your word if there's any reasonable possibility to do it. And if we would cut down the set, it would be me who would have to explain it. And, you know, it was a very difficult situation. But basically, I just told the band, like, look, I understand you're tired, but I can do it, so you can do it. So basically, shut up and play. And I think at that point, it didn't really make the spark that was fading out getting any more strength. So I think that was really the tipping point that we started to realize that maybe we had the best days already, and they were starting to lose interest, and I started to feel like maybe we weren't having the same type of energy for things. Next question. How is it on tour? Do you drink a lot of alcohol? Do you have groupies? I think we're a quite calm band on tour. We're not really a big party band. Thomas Wikström was usually known as the boring guy who never parties when he toured with other bands. And when he's with Therion, he's known as a party animal in the band. So I think that should reveal a lot about how much we drink. I mean, some guys in the band like to have a beer or two once in a while, but it's very rare that you see somebody drunk on tour. And I think people in the current lineup, I think it's been once ever that they've seen me drunk on tour. Yeah, once out of all the tours we did together. So I guess we just take it very serious, you know, that even if you get drunk after the show, you may have a hangover next day, or you don't sleep well or whatever, or you fall asleep well because you've been drinking, but you don't get any quality sleep, and that makes you do a less good job. And for me personally, I'm so focused on what I do. I'm so thankful and grateful that I can do this and make a living out of it. So I find it very insulting if I wouldn't do the very best I can, if I'm paid to play. And also I feel better about myself if I know that I did a good job. So yeah, I don't mind having a drink, but I have a drink at home in my spare time, not at work. We have very different opinions in the band about that. Some of the guys, they think it's fine. I personally don't like it. I think it's a bit disrespectful actually, because you already have a relation to your fans. They are your fans, and I don't know, it just would feel weird for me to stand on stage and look at a girl enjoying my music and then be with her after the show. It would be strange. Also, it's about vanity, I must confess. I would like somebody to know me. The thing is, if you watch a movie, then you don't know how the actor is private. You only seen that actor do a role in the movie. Like if you watch a James Bond movie, you know nothing about Roger Moore or Sean Connery as personalities. You just see the James Bond character. And even though we don't play a role to that extent, like in a movie, it's still a different person you see on stage as compared to how you are as a private person. And I think my vanity demands that I feel that a girl is really attracted by me as a person, and not just as a stage, not only attracted by the stage character. Yeah, I guess we all have our issues, so that's one of mine. So I'm a very bad rock star in that regard. And also on top of that, most tours I've done, I've had a girlfriend waiting for me at home, and it's not really my style to cheat my girlfriend. Laurie, she's a very educated and intelligent person, and we had a lot of very interesting discussions on tour over the years. And also she used to stay here at Villa Adelruna when we rehearsed. I'm really gonna miss her a lot on tour. And yeah, she has a very unique voice. With opera voices, sometimes they are very good voices, but they don't have much character, like personality. And something I really love about Laurie's voice is that it has a lot of personality and character. You can immediately hear that it's her. So I'm looking forward to record with her, at least in the future, even if we won't make any live performances together.
tonight will be the last gig of this tour, the Latin America tour 2014. Tonight will be the last gig with Laurie Lewis.
Laurie's departure of the band is sad. It's very sad because Laurie is unique. Her voice is, well, not from this planet, you know.
Yeah, I'm very glad and proud to have been working with her. But she will continue to record the rock opera with us. So she's not really 100% out, so that feels good.
It wasn't really necessarily just opera that I was doing before I started singing with Therion. I was doing quite a bit of work with professional choirs in Minnesota and did a lot of solo work with them as well. But my experience of music prior to joining Therion was a little bit of everything, doing church music, doing choral music, doing more kind of traditional type things that weren't necessarily really opera. I've done a little bit of opera, but mostly that was when I was in college that I did that. So, but the reason I was actually inspired to join a metal band was because it's kind of it's a very circuitous route, but it's all started with me losing a job that I was working. It was this one of these jobs that I had that was kind of like just to pay the bills, and it didn't work out in the end. And I made a decision to only pursue music from that point. And I said, this is all I'll do is just do music and do everything I can in the vein of music. And so I said yes to everything. I did so many different types of things. I sang with an a cappella ensemble. I sang with a jazz ensemble. I sang with a symphonic metal band also based in Minnesota called Asmodeva. And after that experience, working with Asmodeva, that's how I got the job with Therion.
What people don't know is that Laurie is actually very good in writing arrangements and writing songs as well. So she's kind of multi-talented, and she will work with us in this rock opera. The thing is that she will not tour anymore.
Well, it's of course mixed feelings. I want her to follow the path that she wants to go, of course, but I love her. It's very sad to see her go. She's such an inspiration, and Therion is a live organism. It's not just a band. It's a project, and it will go on forever and ever in different constellations. Like that, basically. I mean, the human body is every 7 years you have completely new cells in your body, and that's exactly what's happened to Therion. I mean, 7 years ago, none of the people in the band that are currently in the band is, so it's totally changed.
So yeah, I started working with Therion in 2007. It really didn't take any convincing at all for me to take that project on, because it was a really exciting, very exciting project, and it meant I got the opportunity to see the world, which is something that I love to do. I love to travel and I love to meet new people. That's one of my passions. So I knew that by working with Therion, I'd actually be able to do that. I didn't realize how much work it would be and how much work it is to be on tour. You don't really get to see a lot of places. You go to a lot of places, but you don't necessarily get to spend a lot of time at these places unless it happens to be that you're there for a concentrated amount of time, like if you're doing a video shoot or if you're doing like a week-long concert series. We did a couple things like that. And those experiences were always a little bit more memorable. Like I have very strong memories about Santiago, Chile, because we've done a couple video shoots there. So for me, that place I have a very strong connection to. And it's purely because we got to spend more than 24 hours there, so.
Very boring that Laurie is leaving, of course, but hey, what should we do? Like, we cannot force her to be in this band anymore. But I hope all the best for her. And let's see what the future says, if she comes back or what happens, you know. And now we look forward to do the Sweden Rock show with Sandra, the new singer, and all about that. So. That's it.
As a band colleague, I think it's a negative decision from her not to continue with the band with live performances, because it's such a small chance to make it with a band. And it's such a privilege to do it. And I know she's going to regret it a lot, or at least miss it a lot. But as a friend, I understand her decision.
Bueno, la verdad es que siempre es dura la partida de un compañero, ¿no? de un colega, de un compañero de banda. Y bueno, en este caso particular no es la excepción. Y además, bueno, Lori resultó ser una compañera excelente. Yo me acuerdo que, bueno, ya la admiraba antes de entrar a la banda, ¿no? Cuando la escuché dije, wow, qué voz que tiene esta chica y cómo canta. Y después, bueno, pasó a ser mi compañera. Nunca dejó de sorprenderme con lo profesional que es. Y bueno, todos saben cómo canta, yo no voy a venir a descubrir nada. Pero nunca dejó de sorprenderme como profesional. Y además, bueno, tuve el enorme placer de conocerla y de compartir muchas cosas con ellas, muchas giras y tal. Y descubrir que es un ser humano maravilloso y con un corazón gigante, así, muy siempre preocupada, involucrada en todo, humanamente hablando, una maravilla también, así que es una doble pérdida en cuanto a lo profesional y en cuanto a lo humano, pero bueno, por otro lado, esto es así, la cosa es dinámica y bueno, ahora ella siente que tiene que abordar otros caminos, así que lo que quiero es, como todos mis compañeros, desearle lo mejor.
Hermanos aztecas, no hay mucho que agregar. Esto que les voy a contar no me pasó en ningún lado. Nosotros tocamos con in-ears, con auriculares aquí dentro, ¿no es cierto? Aquí me pasó que ustedes me están aturdiendo con los gritos. Gritan como nadie.
My plans for the near future right now involve being with my family and my boyfriend and having a normal life, whatever that means. I have no idea what normal really is, but we'll find out. And also working at my job. I have a couple jobs. I teach at a small studio in Portland, Oregon, and I love it. It's such a great thing. They're called Resound Northwest, and we have some really talented teachers there, and I'm lucky to be one of them, working with people of all ages, all the way from age 5 up to 70. I think is one of our students is that old. So yeah, and then I don't really plan to leave the metal scene forever, since I know I'll still be working with Therion. So. Whatever that means. It might mean that I'll be just doing studio work. I'm not sure. And then as for this last concert, it was much more than I expected. I knew that we had a sold out crowd. I know that we had every single ticket that could be bought was bought, and I knew that people were going to be really excited. But it was so intense, and everyone was so into it. I felt like, sometimes when you're performing a concert and you go to a town and you look out to the audience, there are people who are kind of like, okay. But there weren't very many of those people there tonight. It was really very passionate audience, and everybody was really into it. People were jumping up and down and screaming, and even all the way in the very back, like the very, very back row, I saw people standing up there going like this, and like dancing, and that was very cool. It's really fun to be a part of that, to see people kind of let loose and have a great time at a concert. Might be part of the reason why I do it.
I wish her all the best, because she's like my sister. It's like a younger sister that I never had. So, but with Therion, everything is possible. People come and go, and if she someday want to come back, we might welcome her with open arms.
She said you are her favorite Therion member.
She did?
Yes.
Who was my favorite Therion member? God. I can't pick one, because they all are very special and unique in their own ways. But if I had to pick one, it would be Thomas, definitely, just because he's just such a lovable person. And I mean, sometimes we call him socialbosse, which means like the boss of the social hour. He's always the one who's like putting together parties and getting everybody together, but he's a connector, and he's really good at that, and he makes good things happen for a lot of people. So it's, definitely will miss Thomas a lot, and he's my favorite.
Wow, I'm so touched, because she never told me, and that's a good surprise. Our moments on stage that me and Laurie have is magical, and I don't think it's possible to copy that. So now, even if Laurie quit the band, I think the band deserves to go on, but in another shape and in another constellation.
For the future, I mean, it's a big difference to the situation now to how it was when Laurie got into the band. Back then, you always had to get a soprano from the classical scene and try to make her sing with a metal band. But now you have a generation of girls that are sopranos that grew up with symphonic metal. So there's actually much more to choose from now than back then. So when we found Laurie, we were really lucky because it was really difficult to find somebody who fulfilled the qualifications that we wanted. I'm not saying that it's super easy now either, but we have much more to choose from. So I'm very confident that we're going to be able to continue and do it at the same quality. Of course, you need to try it out live before you can fully judge.
And no, this is not the last time you're going to hear my voice, and I know I'll be singing quite a bit more. I don't know if I'll be singing on an international type level anymore, but who knows, we'll see. I'm not done singing. I'm certainly not done making music. And not forever. I plan to sing until I'm dead. As for favorite songs of Therion, I like a lot of songs, but I have to say I think one of my favorite albums, when I was first listening to the entire catalog of Therion albums, was Secret of the Rooms. I think that it's a really well-written album. I think that the songs come together very well. I think the lyrics, even though they're a little bit awkward in some places for singing, they are very effective in terms of, setting a mood. It's a very moody album. Something I'm going to miss about touring with Therion, obviously it's the band. It's the people that I'm working with. They've become my family. And that's going to be really hard. Tonight, there was a lot of tears. There were lots of tears on stage, a lot of crying. That's why my makeup looks like it does. because we were all crying. It's going to be hard. I'm really going to miss them.
I'd like to thank you, on behalf of the whole band, for great memories, great duets, and actually great farts.
No, that's you on.
That's you on, yeah. But Laurie, anyway, it has been a pleasure. I don't know really what to say. I'm touched, and if you someday feel that you want to come back, you're welcome, okay?
Chair for.
So now, baby, Caliancinos de Mexico! Are you ready, baby? Are you ready, baby? Ella baila y se canta,
Bueno, ahora lo que sigue es la rock ópera en lo inmediato. Si bien ahora tenemos algunos festivales de verano en Europa este año, pero bueno, ahora vamos a continuar con las canciones que hasta ahora lo que hemos venido mostrando en realidad han sido ideas aisladas de cada uno. Aún no hemos interactuado por una cuestión de tiempo. Entonces acá tenés la obertura que la hizo Christofer, Onda Tuner también, y después hay una Who Is Your God, que es una canción de Linnea, luego la canción de Thomas, también hay una canción mía que es Sad Ending, que es la que ejecutaban solos Thomas y Lori. Bueno, pero hasta ahora no hemos interactuado, hasta ahora son ideas separadas. La idea ahora es trabajar juntos, ya sea en el mismo lugar o vía internet, pero bueno, seguir con la historia, ¿no?
One last quote. I don't think there's really one last quote. I don't really believe in saying things like stay metal, which, okay. I mean, some people are really into staying metal, but I'm not necessarily just into being metal. I guess to me, I would say maybe stay true to yourself and follow your passion. I think that's the most important thing that we can all believe and do in our lives, because life is fleeting and you never know what's going to happen the next day. So you need to follow the passion that you have right now at this moment. And that's it. Thank you, everybody.
¿Y quién mejor que la raza azteca para presentar esta canción? Que se llama
Don't forget to thank the crew who make this possible every day. If you had any idea what our crew have to go through to make these shows happen, you would probably ask for their address and send them money or something. They are worth every cent. The best fucking crew on the planet. Thank you very much.
Action.
Okay, music is on.
Alright, sorry. It's a bloody, bloody mess.
Yeah.
Like this?
Sí.
Like this?
Sí.
Okay.
Say start when you start.
Action.
Okay.
Ready and action. Music.
Nu får du vara redo för jag tänker...
Wait, wait, wait.
Action. Action. Anita andas in. Music. Action.
Fotografi.
Vamos. I'm ready.
Okay.
Music. Music. And corre cámara.
Cámara.
Música. Action.
I tried to do this Emmanuel soft pulsing and not even that worked.
You have to sell everything you own. The only thing you still have is your apartment, which you're about to sell as well, and the person you loved left you. So nobody wants you as an artist, nobody wants you as a person.
That's horrible.
Yeah, so you have your last glass of wine and you have your, well, balcony. You know, instead of starting to work at the Shell station and, you know, oh, that's the one that used to be famous, and sell all your fancy stuff, and you rather take the glorious death.
Vad är frågan?
Så hamnar vi på fyrfest igen, skål!
Ja. Espera, el viento.
It goes from...
Yeah, I know.
Can we stop? I thought you were really picked that stuff. For the camera, action.
Special sound.
Beautiful my balls.
Next one.
Du är lite för fick i ansiktet.
It's only rock and roll, but...
I'd like to pretend scream, but don't scream because there's people eating here. Yeah. But...
So much to think about.
Jag snor röka vattenpipa också och flickan. Va?
Ja, vi måste nu röka på riktigt.
Ja.
Är det värre att göra?
Ja, men ta snor då. Så in, dra massa in lungorna så du håller in
och håller munnen
ut därifrån.
Ja. Para que se vea como el humo va saliendo ahí.
Jag vill inte.
Inte?
Nej.
Jag är själv allergisk men jag kan inte röra loss.
Fula jävla fickor alltså.
Jävla bögeri.
Ja.
Det är som Snowshows...
Welcome to my library. I'm gonna reveal a few Therion secrets to you. And let's start with the art project. When I did this art project, the CD was the main thing. But there's also other things around it. There are things that was made during the recording, which are part of the art project, and there are also other acts of art that I've been conducting. And one of the things that I did during the actual recording was to do one act of art for each song. And some of them were pretty controversial, some of them were less controversial. And I might give you an example or two. For instance, for the song Lilith, I conducted an invocation ceremony for Lilith and recorded it, and I put it behind the music. So it's actually an invocation ceremony being conducted behind the music. And it's not really hearable. I don't think you can hear it. I can sense it because I know in some places where to listen. And it's not supposed to be heard. That's the whole point of it. And when it comes to the song Je le mal de toi, the act of art for that song was to tell the story of Betty Marsh that originally performed the song. How she had her great life with great success, big fame, and how she lost it all, and how she became a forgotten artist, and how her friends abandoned her, and she lost all her money, or spent it, I guess. And in the end, she had nothing left, and the big lover of her life also left her, so she was heartbroken. She was not having many friends, and she was broke, and she decided to kill herself because she didn't want to sink any further down. So she jumped from her window, actually, from her flat in Paris, and she died in hospital a few days later. And the video clip from Je le mal de toi, we tried to tribute her in it. I told the story about the whole thing to everybody who recorded something in the song. And that was the act of art for that song, that everybody who recorded something, it could be orchestral people, or the guy who mixed it, or the guy who recorded the orchestra, or anybody who did something on that song got the story told before they did their contribution to the song. So they would put the right feeling into it. And I think it succeeded very well to get this really sad and moody atmosphere, because everybody seemed to get touched by the story. So instead of just getting a sheet with notes on it and playing your violin and get paid for it, they did it in a more personal way, because they knew that this was a tribute to a very great artist who died very tragically. And that's why I also told the story on stage every time when we toured and played the song. Another act of art that I was conducting was in Paris, when Baudelaire, who wrote the poem collection called Les Fleurs du Mal, the Flowers of Evil, when he was living his life, he did it in a very decadent and filthy way. He would have sex with the cheapest prostitutes as possible because he had spent all his money. He had a heritage which he spent, and he lived very poorly, and he would hang around with just very dodgy people, drinking cheap booze and took a lot of drugs. He was an addict to opium, and yeah, he drank way too much alcohol, and he would have sex with the cheapest prostitutes. And in the end, he died from his drug and alcohol abuse and from syphilis, which he got from these prostitutes. So even though he was an absolutely outstanding poet, he didn't live a very glorious life, rather the other way around. So I wanted to go into a Baudelairean atmosphere with this art project, because Baudelaire, he was very provocative in his own times. He wrote poems about lesbian love, and he was writing blasphemic poetry, and he was being pressed charges against for insulting the whole country, basically. And he was judged for that. So he couldn't publish 6 of his poems. They were forbidden in France until 1948, I think it was, which are pretty modern times after all. I mean, that's after the Second World War. And he was seen as really, really provocative. One of my aims with the art project was to provoke. And I wanted to present my art in this regard to people in a similar environment where Baudelaire was active. So I went out to find the place where Baudelaire would have been today, if he would have been from my generation. If he would have lived the same type of life now as he did then, he would have been in the red light district of Paris. So we set up a stand outside the most dodgy porn store we could find on a very dark street. And we had a bottle of cheap rum, and I had the CDs, the fleur de mal, and I had some very depraved companions of mine, and we also had roses, because it's the flowers of evil. So I sold the CD on the street with the stage clothes and everything to people who were just regular alcoholics or porn consumers or drug addicts. That's sort of people that would hang around there. And it was pretty hostile sometimes. Some people didn't appreciate me being there at all. They thought I was looking weird in these clothes. And we had also a price list. I sold it very cheap because, I mean, who would pay 15 or 20 euro for a CD they never heard on the street? So I sold it for 5 euro if people were depraved. It was 2 different prices, like 10 euro for people who are ordinary, 5 euro for depraved people. And depraved people would also get a rose and a glass of cheap rum for free with the CD. So it's a pretty good deal. And yeah, we've actually managed to sell a bunch. It was more difficult to try to get a photo of people who were buying the stuff because they were, not so amused by us trying to take photos. But a few of them actually were really cool, and they were totally fine being on photos. So I'm gonna show you some of these photos. However, after a while, it became so not violent, because nobody was violent against us, but like violence was in the air, that there were some people that were really provoked by the fact that we were there. So some of the nice, depraved people there, they helped us to move the stand, and then for a while we were standing next to the subway in the outskirts of the red light district. And then we ran into a lot of other people, like a lot of hipsters and other people, and it was interesting to see their reaction too, but we didn't really manage to sell as many CDs to them, and they were kind of puzzled about this whole depraved thing. I think we sold a few though. So, let's reveal another secret. How did Villa Alderuna come about? Villa Alderuna, as you can see some parts of in the Mon Amour, Mon Ami video clip, is a very unique constructional project. There's nothing like it in Sweden. It has a lot of style mixes, just like Therion. It's very diverse, and the rooms have very different atmosphere, and I've been mixing cultures and styles wildly. Just how I created Therion music. So, how did Villa Alderuna come about? Well, the story begins with me living in an apartment in a very bad neighborhood outside Stockholm. And it was not particularly fun living there. There was cars burning sometimes in the parking lot. There was a rape outside my window on the lawn just outside where I was living. And they were breaking into my car 6 times. They broke into my cellar storage 2 times. I mean, I can take care of myself, so I wasn't very afraid, but it wasn't a very good place to live, and I didn't like it that much. And I was dreaming about living in the countryside instead, and have a nice house and so on. But I don't know, I just never got about to do it. But then one day I realized I would become a father, and that completely changed everything. I didn't want my child to grow up in that neighborhood. I didn't want to send him to school, to that crap school in that neighborhood. So I thought, now this is what I needed. This is the time to actually do something about this, to find a place where I really want to live and die. So I was driving around with my car looking for land that was for sale until I one day found a beautiful little meadow, really beautiful, at the end of the road in the forest, in a nature protection area with a gorgeous lake next to it. And I thought, this is where I'm gonna build my house. How I financed Villa Alderuna. I mean, obviously people think that if you live in a house like this and if you play in a famous band, you're making really good cash as a musician. And well, truthfully, I make pretty decent cash from being a musician. I have no complaints, but I don't make this kind of money that I can build a house like this. So what's the secret? Well, as an artist, you get paid a lump sum every time you make a tour, and you get paid twice a year as a songwriter. And if you're lucky enough to get royalties, you also get royalties twice a year. But I've earned very little cash in the beginning when I started living out of music, so I was always very careful with my money. And when I really started to make pretty decent money and I got some savings, I wanted to do something with it for the future, so secure my future, because you never know how long things are gonna last. One day you're famous, maybe next day you're not. So I started to invest in the stock market. And I made pretty decent cash for a number of years trying to invest with different stocks. And then one day I just realized that Apple is a truly fantastic company financially. They were a computer company who went almost bankrupt. But then they started to build up their customer base again, and they invented the iPod, which was becoming really famous. So I really believed in the company, and I took all my savings. I sold off all the other stocks and took all my savings and went all in with Apple. And that was a very smart decision, because Apple would soon release the iPhone, which completely changed everything. So the stock course of Apple was like a rocket, totally up. For the years I remained a shareholder, I think I made 5 or 6 times my money that I invested. So all of a sudden, after a couple of years, I was a multi-millionaire. And well, when it was time to build a house, I had pretty much money to deal with. Let's reveal another secret. I've told the story in several interviews how I didn't want to continue in the musical style that the band was in at the time of Le Paquet Cliff-Off. I didn't want to continue to be guitar based and base the vocals on my vocal efforts. I wanted to go operatic and classical and use orchestras and opera singers and keyboards and tons of stuff. And fortunately, the record label believed in the idea and I had the money for it. And well, from there, you know the rest. That's how we changed metal music in the 90s. But what would have happened if the record company would have said, well, sorry, you don't want to continue this way, and well, there's nothing we can do about that. If you want to disband the band, your problem. What would I have done if I would have disbanded Therion? Well, here's the truth. I actually started to rehearse with another band that I formed together with a friend called Tommy Eriksson and do 70s type of music instead. And we named the band Tilly. And we rehearsed a couple of times and I had written 2 songs for the band. And then, highly unexpectedly, the record label told me I will get the cash to do a symphonic album. So then I, of course, decided to go for Therion instead. And this band called Tilly was disbanded. And I took one of the songs I had written for Therion instead. That song is Cult of the Shadow. I rearranged the song and put in some opera choirs and some symphonic keyboards and stuff instead. But you can still hear that it's really 70s, it has its organs and so on. And well, because of deciding to go with Therion instead, I named the album Tilly. I continued to write 70s style of songs over the years, and sometimes it made it into Therion, like Lemuria, for instance. I mean, that song could have been released in the 70s. And Dreams of Swedenborg has really a lot of 70s influences, and Land of Canaan and Children of the Stone. There's a lot of 70s influences in Therion, but it's somehow not so much 70s that it's out of range for Therion. And yeah, well, the songs that were too much genuinely 70s, they were simply not used. And the last couple of years, there's been this revival of interest in the 70s sounds. So I started to look through the old songs that I had written over the years, and I thought, whoa, if everybody like 70s style now, maybe I could release them, you know, because I could have released them earlier, but I just didn't think that anybody would be interested. It sounds pretty much how Tilly would have sounded if I would have disbanded Therion. This is how it would have sounded instead. And at the time of making this interview, I'm just about to finish the last few recordings of it. And then I'm gonna send it off to mix. And yeah, we'll see when the album is mixed what I'm gonna do with it. I don't know at the moment. Maybe I'll release it myself, or maybe I'll try to sell it to a record company or something. We'll see. But nevertheless, I think it's gonna be very interesting that after all these years, there will be 70s type of songs that I wrote from 95 and onwards will finally be released. I mean, that other Tilly song is from 1995. It's almost 20 years old and it still rules.